All right, let's dive in. Today, we're taking a look at Lillian Zhang, at Lillian's Hang on TikTok.
Oh, yeah, I've seen her around. Seems pretty popular.
Definitely. She's got a ton of posts, and a bunch of those have gone, like, totally viral.
Nice.
Yeah, but we're not just here to gawk at the big numbers. We're trying to figure out, like, what's her secret sauce, right? What's working, what could be tweaked, and how all of that can help us step up our own TikTok game.
Basically, we're going full-on TikTok detective mode.
Exactly. So first things first, her bio, career, money, life. Pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
She's also got a budget template she mentions, and she's based in San Francisco. Gives you a sense of her niche, like who she's talking to.
Yeah, it's clear she's targeting, like, young professionals, probably dealing with that crazy San Francisco cost of living.
For sure. And she's not messing around. 625 posts, a lot of content. And get this, 2.2 million likes across all those videos.
Wow, so people are definitely paying attention.
They are. But here's the thing that caught my eye. Her average engagement rate is 0.02%. Now, I'm not a TikTok guru or anything, but that feels a little low, right? Like, what's the deal with engagement rate? Is this something to worry about?
Good question. Engagement rate can be kind of confusing. It's basically how much people are interacting with a post, not just watching it. We're talking likes, comments, shares. The more of that, the higher the engagement.
'Cause it's not enough to just get views. You want people to actually, like, do something.
Exactly. Now, whether 0.02% is good or bad, it really depends on the niche. Some say anything above 5% is amazing for TikTok, but that's more for, like, dance challenges or super trendy stuff. Personal finance content, which is what Lillian does, might naturally have lower engagement.
Okay, so maybe it's not time to freak out, but it's definitely something to keep in mind as we go deeper.
Yeah, for sure. Now, speaking of digging deeper, let's look at those hashtags. We've got hashtag personal finance, hashtag money, hashtag gens, hashtag financial literacy. It's like she's painting a picture of her ideal viewer with these.
Totally. It all connects back to that career, money, life vibe from her bio. Seems like she's laser focused on young adults, mostly Gen Z, who are trying to figure out this whole money thing.
Right, and using those hashtags consistently helps her attract the right audience. Plus, it tells the TikTok algorithm what her content is all about. That's how she gets her videos in front of those people.
So hashtags are like strategic weapons. Now, tell me about her posting schedule. She seems to be most active Mondays, Sundays, and Fridays, usually around 4:00 p.m. Pacific time.
I'm guessing that's not random. She's probably figured out when her audience is most likely to be on TikTok. Mondays and Fridays, people are getting into or out of the work week. Sundays, they're chilling, maybe planning for the week ahead. Prime time for some scrolling, right? And 4:00 p.m. Pacific probably catches folks right after work or school.
So she's not just throwing content into the void, she's strategically timing it to hit her audience when they're most receptive. Pretty smart. Okay, but let's move past the numbers for a bit and talk about actual content. There's this one post with a mind-blowing 1.5 million views. What did she talk about to get that kind of attention?
This is where it gets really interesting. Remember all that talk about actionable advice? This video was a perfect example of that. It's titled, 5 Steps I'd Take If I Were to Rebuild My Finances from Scratch as a 24-year-old with 6 figures saved.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. But I get why it would grab people's attention. It promises steps. And saying she's got 6 figures at 24 makes her sound, like, super credible.
For sure. It's not just about what, it's about how. People want to know, okay, she did this, how can I do it too?
So even if you're not a finance whiz, you can learn from this. It's about making a title that hooks people in, promising value. What else was special about this video? Was it, like, short and snappy?
Actually, it was on the longer side. 157 seconds, so over 2.5 minutes. That means people were actually engaged enough to watch the whole thing, which is impressive on TikTok.
Whoa, really? I thought short videos were the way to go on TikTok.
Yeah, that's a common thought, but clearly it's not always the case. This video also used her own original sound, which can boost brand recognition and make it feel more authentic.
Right, so it's not just about length, it's about what's in those minutes. What kind of stuff did she actually talk about in this video?
She got pretty real. Talked about rebuilding finances from scratch, her own struggles, the steps she took to get where she is now. It's relatable, it's inspiring, and it gives people a clear path to follow.
It's like she's saying, hey, I was in your shoes, you can do it too. Okay, starting to see a pattern here. Actionable advice, personal stories, and a strong hook. Now we know Lillian's not hitting those crazy numbers with every post.
Right. No one bats 1,000, even on TikTok.
Exactly. So let's look at some of the posts that didn't do as well and figure out why.
Love it. Learning from the failures is just as important as celebrating the wins. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're back, digging deeper into Lillian's TikTok strategy. We saw how she crushed it with that one viral video.
Yeah, 1.5 million views, that's wild. But obviously, not every post is going to be a home run, right?
Definitely not. Even the biggest creators have those posts that just kind of.
Don't quite hit the mark.
Exactly. And that's actually a goldmine for learning. We can see what maybe didn't work as well and like why.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where do we even start with that?
Well, let's take a look at some of the videos that, while they didn't flop, they didn't exactly go viral either.
Got it. So like the almost famous posts.
Haha, yeah, something like that. There's this one where she talks about, hold on, let me get the title right. Here it is. How I budget using the 50-30-20 rule. Sounds promising, right?
Yeah, definitely. Budgeting tips are always useful.
For sure. But this one only got about, let me see, around 20,000 views. Still decent, but way less than her top performers.
Interesting. So what do you think happened there? Was the topic just not that exciting?
It's possible. Budgeting can be a bit, dry for some people.
True. Maybe the title wasn't catchy enough either.
Yeah, could be. It's pretty straightforward. Maybe doesn't have that same, clickbait factor as some of her other titles.
I see. So even if the advice is solid, the packaging matters,
Absolutely. It's like you can have the best product in the world, but if no one's drawn to it, it's not going to sell.
Makes sense. What about the video itself? Was it super long or something?
Actually, it was under a minute, so pretty standard TikTok length.
Okay, so it's not the length, it's maybe the delivery. Was she just talking to the camera or did she do something more visually engaging?
She used some text overlays and a couple of B-roll shots, but it was mostly her talking directly to the camera.
I guess that could get a little monotonous if it's not super dynamic, right?
Yeah, it's a tough balance. You want to keep things informative, but also visually appealing so people don't get bored and scroll away.
So maybe she could have spiced things up with more visuals, transitions, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Little things can make a big difference in grabbing attention, especially on a fast-paced platform like TikTok.
So it's not just about the content itself, it's also about how you present it, how you keep people engaged.
Totally. Now, here's another one that didn't quite reach its full potential. It's about, let me check, how to negotiate a higher salary. Super relevant topic, right?
Oh, yeah, everyone wants to know how to do that.
For sure. But this one only got around 30,000 views.
Interesting. So not a bad number, but still kind of underperforming considering the topic.
Right. And this one was actually a bit longer, like a minute and a half. She used some screen recordings to show example emails and stuff, which was a good move.
Yeah, visuals are always helpful. But then what was missing?
I think it might have been a bit too technical. She got into some nitty-gritty details about negotiation tactics, which can be helpful, but maybe a little overwhelming for a casual TikTok viewer.
Right. It's people want the quick and dirty tips, not a whole lecture on negotiation theory.
Exactly. So finding that balance between providing value and keeping things digestible is key.
So maybe she could have broken it down into a series of shorter videos, each focusing on a specific tip or tactic.
That's a great idea. It's more snackable that way, easier for people to consume and, actually apply.
Okay, so we're seeing some common themes here. Catchy titles, engaging visuals, and keeping things concise and to the point.
Totally. These are all things we can all learn from, no matter what niche we're in.
Absolutely. All right, so what else can we uncover from Lillian's less than viral posts?
Let's see. There's this one where she's talking about, my top 5 investing apps for beginners. Sounds useful, Real.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic these days.
It is. But this one only got around 15,000 views.
Huh, that's surprising. Why do you think it didn't do better?
Well, this one might have been a bit too niche. People who are already interested in investing might find it useful, but for those who aren't, it's probably not going to grab their attention.
So it's she narrowed her audience too much with this one.
It's possible. Sometimes it's good to branch out and try different topics, but you got to make sure those topics still align with your overall brand and target audience.
Right, you don't want to alienate your core followers.
Exactly. Now, this last one is a bit different. It's about, let me see, why I'm quitting my 9-to-5. Sounds pretty dramatic, right?
Oh yeah, that'll get people clicking.
It did, but the engagement was a bit mixed. It got a lot of views, over 100,000, but the comments were, a bit all over the place.
Oh, interesting. So people were watching but maybe not in the way she intended.
Yeah, it seems like some people were supportive while others were like criticizing her decision or saying she was being unrealistic.
So it generated buzz, but not necessarily the good kind of buzz.
Exactly. Sometimes a little controversy can be good for engagement, but you got to be prepared for the mixed reactions.
Right, it's a gamble. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it backfires.
Totally. But that's the beauty of TikTok, you know? You never really know it's going to go viral or spark a debate.
True that. All right, so we've seen some hits, we've seen some misses. What's the overall takeaway here?
I think the biggest lesson is that even the best creators don't get it right every time. It's all about experimenting, analyzing what works, and constantly refining your approach.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all formula, it's about constantly learning and adapting.
Exactly. And, you know, having fun along the way. After all, if you're not enjoying it, it's gonna show.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so we've learned a ton about Lillian's content, both the good and the, well, not so good. What's next on our TikTok detective agenda?
Well, now that we've got a handle on the content itself, let's dive into the audience. Who are these people watching, liking, and commenting on Lillian's videos? Let's find out.
All right, so we've talked about Lillian's content strategy, both the hits and the misses.
Yeah, learned a lot from those, even the ones that didn't quite take off.
Absolutely. But now, let's shift gears and talk about the people on the other side of the screen, the audience.
Okay, yeah. Who are these people who are actually watching and engaging with Lillian's content? Well, based on everything we've seen so far, the hashtags, the topics she covers, that whole career, money, life vibe, it seems like her core audience is mainly young adults.
Makes sense. She's a young adult herself, so she's probably speaking directly to her peers.
Exactly. And think about it. This is a generation that's like just starting out. They're figuring out their careers, managing money for the first time, trying to adult, basically.
Yeah, and let's be real, adulting is hard. So they're probably looking for guidance, inspiration, and maybe even some reassurance that they're not alone in this whole thing.
Totally. And that's where Lillian comes in. She's not just giving advice, she's sharing her own experiences, her struggles, her successes. It makes her relatable, like a friend who's figured some stuff out and is willing to share the tips.
It's that whole authenticity thing, right? People can spot a fake from a mile away.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Lillian comes across as super genuine, which is probably why people connect with her so strongly.
Okay, so we know it's mostly young adults, but can we get any more specific than that? Like, are there any clues about their interests, habits, that kind of stuff?
Well, remember how we talked about her posting schedule? Monday, Sundays, Fridays, around 4 p.m. Pacific time?
Yeah, she's got it down to a science.
Right. Well, that also tells us something about her audience. It means they're likely online and scrolling through TikTok during those times. Maybe they're taking a break from work or school, winding down after a long day, or just catching up on what they missed over the weekend.
So she's not just posting whenever she feels like it. She's strategically targeting those prime engagement times. Makes sense.
Exactly. She's meeting her audience where they are, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, so we've got a good sense of who they are and when they're most active. Now, I'm curious about how they're actually engaging with her content. Are they just watching, or are they actively liking, commenting, sharing?
Well, we saw that her views and likes are pretty solid, but there's definitely room for improvement in the comments and shares department.
All right, those are the gold stars of engagement, the signs that people are really invested in what you're putting out there.
Totally. And it's not just about vanity metrics, it's about building a community around your content. When people comment and share, it sparks conversations, creates connections, and ultimately leads to a more loyal following.
So how can Lillian encourage more of that? Any tips from the TikTok Detective playbook?
Well, a good starting point is to be more deliberate with calls to action. Like at the end of her videos, she could ask a specific question to get people talking, or encourage them to tag a friend who might find the content useful.
Ooh, I like that. It's like she's directly inviting them to participate, not just passively consume.
Exactly. It's all about making them feel like they're part of the conversation.
Any other strategies you could try?
Well, the data shows that videos that offer practical tips, relatable experiences, or even spark a little bit of controversy tend to generate more comments and shares.
So get people thinking, get them talking, even if it's a little heated sometimes.
Exactly. Sometimes a little healthy debate can be a good thing.
Okay, so calls to action, engaging content, maybe a sprinkle of controversy here and there. Got it. So what's the big takeaway here? What can our listeners learn from all of this?
I think the biggest lesson is that understanding your audience is just as important as creating great content.
Yeah, it's like you can make the most amazing videos in the world, but if they're not resonating with the right people, it's all for nothing.
Exactly. So take the time to figure out who you're trying to reach, what are their interests, their pain points, what keeps them up at night, and then create content that speaks directly to those things.
It's all about that connection, that feeling that someone gets you, that you're not alone in your struggles.
And once you've found your audience, don't be afraid to experiment. Try different things, see what works, and be willing to adjust your strategy along the way.
It's a journey, right? Not a destination.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep creating, and most importantly, have fun with it. If you're not enjoying the process, it'll show.
Couldn't agree more. Well, there you have it, folks. We've gone deep into the world of Lillian Zhang's TikTok strategy, from her content to her audience and everything in between.
We've seen her successes, her stumbles, and everything she's learned along the way.
And hopefully you picked up some valuable insights that you can apply to your own TikTok journey.
Remember, there's no magic formula, but with a little effort and a lot of heart, you can create content that connects, inspires, and maybe even goes viral.
So get out there, experiment, have fun, and who knows, maybe we'll be dissecting your TikTok strategy on a future episode.
That's right. Until then, happy TikToking, everyone.